Hi everyone, my name is Phil and welcome to Phil Does 3D. I'm a multimedia and 3D artist and I stream on Twitch weekdays from 5 p.m. Pacific time in the US, 12 p.m. in Australia and 1 a.m. in the UK. I hope you're all well and thank you for tuning in and watching. Hi Sniper Echo, it's always good to see you in chat. It truly is. So, hello, I hope you guys had a good weekend and I hope you had a good weekend, Sniper Echo. Let's bring people up to speed on what we've been doing, what we're going to be doing today, just for anyone that may be new or may be watching. We started by creating a garden terrace in 3D Studio Max, which is this one here, and texturing it up using Mari by the Foundry. Once we'd done that, we exported the model as an OBJ and we brought it into Eon View. We set the model up in View for its materials. Then we laid down a basic environment for it to sit on. The last stream we were adding some plants to the garden terrace. And again, remember guys, this render you're seeing here is a really low quality preview render. And we're using this because it's quick to render out as we set our scene up. Once we're finished setting our scene up, we'll do a final render and we'll do adjustments to lighting. And then we're going to be taking it into Photoshop to do final color adjustments on it. Or color correction. So that's what we've been doing and this is what we are doing now. So we're going to continue on populating our environment here and making it look pretty. And Sniper Echoes, oh good, you had a good weekend? I did have a good weekend, thank you very much. A very lazy weekend actually. I spent my time watching a few movies I hadn't seen that I wanted to catch up on. So it was good, nice and relaxing. So what are we going to do today? I think, remember as I've been saying to you guys, if you're working in Eon View, and again, remember guys, it's a free program. You can download a PLE version, Personal Learning Edition, for free from Eon View's website if you want to try it out. As I've been explaining to you guys, it's probably easier for you to work from your background to your foreground. Because when you start adding elements in your foreground, you're going to start covering up elements in your background. You can fix that to some extent by putting things in layers, which are like Photoshop layers, but you can hide them in the render. So let's just close that down. If you look in the camera viewport down here, I've got my terrain in its own layer, background plants in its own layer, and then the background trees, which are behind the terrace here, in their own layer. So say you wanted to concentrate only on, let's say, the trees in the foreground, you can either lock, which means they turn grey and you can't accidentally select them and move them. So if you're worried about when you're working in your viewports accidentally selecting something and moving it, lock the layer and you'll know that it's locked, like I said, because the plants will turn grey. Or you can hide the layer and you see the plants disappear in the background. Again, that's just makes it easy for you to work if you're starting to populate your scene up a lot and you need to select specific objects or move specific objects. You can hide those layers. So always try and work in layers. It's again, good housekeeping, like I'm always telling you guys. It's important to make sure you name things correctly, and this will help with working on your file, on your environment. Let's turn that back on. Alright, so what are we going to do? I'm jumping up here into my top viewport and pull in a bit on these stairs. Again, don't pay too much attention to the way it looks in the top viewport because these are just, I think View might use OpenGL for their renderer, so it's really not a good indication of what the render would look like. It's just good enough so you can see what the actual thing is that you're placing or working on. But like I said, you can see that the normal map on this looks a bit harsh, a bit too strong, but when it comes to do the render it won't. It's just a quirk of working in OpenGL and View's viewports here. Again, that was why it was important. Like I said to you guys, I use Knald, K-N-A-L-D, to do my normal maps because I can load in the object I'm creating a normal map for and see exactly what it's going to look like correctly. And that's really the only program that will show you what your normal map will look like properly. Most of these other design programs, this includes Max as well, give you an approximation of your normal map, but they don't. It's always going to be different when it gets to actually being rendered. So by using Gnarled, that program gives you a really good approximation of what your normal map will look like, and which is one of the reasons I really like that program. But there's plenty of programs you can use to do your normal mapping. Bitmap to Material is one. There's a plugin for Photoshop that NVIDIA made years ago that you can use to create your normal maps from your bitmap textures. So I just prefer to use Gnarled because, like I said, I can load in my object that I'm creating a normal map for and see exactly what it's going to look like. Anyway, I'm going to select my garden terrace here. I'm going to open up the material editor. I just did that by double clicking on the sphere, the material sphere. And these little arrows will let you move through the textures that are assigned to that model. I'm going to find one that's assigned to the stairs. Now if you look in the viewport, view is highlighting the objects in blue that the material corresponds to. Now if you remember when we worked in Vue version 9, it used to highlight it in it was either a lighter or a darker color red, I can't remember exactly, but in Vue 2015, which is what we're using, and that's what you download from Eon's website if you wanted to try the program, it highlights the selected object in blue. So just for anyone that's getting confused between when we were working in version 9 and now that we're working in version 2015, anything you select in 2015 will be highlighted in a bluey color. So again, let's keep going through until we find the material that the stairs are using. Remember, we did take the time to go through and name all of our textures as well, so we should know when we get to it up here. It should say steps or stairs. Another thing to bear in mind too, if you see me working my viewports here, you see I'm zooming into this, but it's not affecting my other viewports. Now by default, when you first install the program, it won't be like that. When you zoom in one viewport, it'll zoom in on all of them. Now you might like that and want to keep it that way, but I don't. I like to zoom in independently in my viewports. I don't want to zoom in here and have all my other viewports zoom in as well. And if you want to change that, you just go into options here. And I think it's under general preferences. No, it might be under display options actually. In here you'll find a setting that will allow you to turn that off. So just gotta find where it is. It's this setting here. It says independent zooming and panning of views. If you turn that on, and by default it's turned off, you'll be able to zoom in one viewport and still stay zoomed out in your other two. If you don't click that, if you don't enable that tick box, then when you zoom in one viewport, you'll zoom in all of them. And like I said, I prefer not to have it not do that, so I turn that on. So just in case you're wondering, if you've downloaded it and you see me zooming in here, and on your version it zooms in all the viewports, that's the setting you change in the preferences. Oh, cool. Well, I'm glad I helped you out, Sniper Echo. Yeah, I thought when I was working the other day, I thought to myself, I forgot to mention that I'd done that, and that's just a preference I have because it's more like the way I work in Max and Max's viewports. When you zoom in Max, it doesn't zoom in all your viewports at the same time. I find it annoying if it does that, so I turn that off, or turn that on, I should say, that option in the preferences, just so it's more familiar for me working in Max. In most 3D programs, when you zoom in one viewport, it doesn't zoom in on all the others. So just to be aware of that. And that's the setting you change in your preferences. Anyway, let's keep going here and look for our texture we're using for our steps. Actually, while we're on the preferences, there's a couple of other things in here I probably should point out too. Now, make sure you set your max usable video memory to whatever your video card is. Now, I have a GTX 1080, so I have 8 gigabytes of RAM, so I set it to 8192. If you've got a 1 gigabyte video card, set it to 1024. If you've got a 512 meg, set it to 512. 2048 for 2 gigabytes, you know the gist. Make sure you set that. And also, maximum number of displayed instances. Now, by default, Vue defaults to, I think it's 150,000, and I set it to 1.5 million. That just means that when I start putting objects in my scene, Vue won't degrade them, won't turn them into planes, or whatever. You'll be able to at least get an indication of what the object is. If that's too low, though, Vue will start replacing the objects, your trees and bushes and that sort of thing, just with like a box. It's similar to Max's bounding box. When Max starts to run out of memory, it can sometimes just create a box where the object is. Vue will do the same thing if that's too low. So basically what I do when I install the program is I just put an extra 0 in that box there. So take it from 150,000 to 1.5 million. I don't generally change any of these. So you can leave them the way they are, or any of this stuff here. But make sure you change your video card's memory to whatever your video card is, and I'd recommend adding an extra 0 in max number of displayed instances. Also under general preferences, that's under display options. Under general preferences, I always up my ecosystem as well. So again, by default, I think Vue defaults to 500,000, and I up that by adding an extra 0 to 5 million. That's just before Vue will warn you that you're using a lot of instances, because 5 million instances, 500,000, which is what it defaults to, is not a lot for this program, because you can see that we're already over 1 billion polys for this scene. So by upping that to 5 million for the instances, it'll just stop that warning message from popping up every time you try and add an ecosystem to your scene. So I just like to up it so I don't hit that warning so often, because 500,000 is too low in my opinion. Even if you've only got 8 gigabytes or 4 gigabytes of memory, you still should be fine in upping that to about 5 million from 500,000. And also, so that's really it for general preferences. Display options. Also make sure you're using Shader Model 4. It may default to software. Again, it's going to be dependent on your video card, so I don't want to make a blanket statement here, but if you've got a newer video card, anything from this NVIDIA 6 series, like 660, 670 up, you should be safe with Shader Model 4. Because the GTX 1080 uses Shader Model 6, the 7 series, 770, and that uses Shader Model 5, so anything with the 600 series and up, if NVIDIA, Shader Model 4 should be fine. If you're using an AMD card, I'm not sure, you'd have to look it up, because I don't use AMD cards, graphics cards. So yeah, always make sure if you've got a newer video card, you're in OpenGL 2.1. If you don't have a new video card, you can still use Vue, but you just got to make sure you choose one of these lower graphics settings here, even all the way down to software, and that's for people that may be trying to run it on a notebook or something like that, the software on a notebook. Okay, I think that's it for the settings, so there's nothing much else I changed here. So let's go back to finding our stairs. Oh cool, you just got a GTX 1060 Sniper Echo 6 gig. Cool. Well, you'll find I don't know what you were using before that, but NVIDIA's 10 series cards are great. The speed improvement is just amazing. I went from using a GTX 770 to a 1080, and yeah, it's just incredible the speed difference between them. The new Pascal cards are real speed demons, and 6 gigabytes of memory is a good amount of memory to do 3D work. Or video work for that matter. So congratulations, it's a nice video card. Okay, there are steps. Now, I know when I made the model, I broke the steps up into the steps and then the stair background. I'm not going to touch the background, but I do want to look at the steps themselves. So now that we've found our steps texture, I'm going to go back into my color and alpha, and I'm going to change my material from a simple material to ecosystem particles. It's just telling me that it's going to place the ecosystem underneath of my texture. So basically what that does is it keeps your texture map, but adds an ecosystem on top of that. And what we're going to do now is we're going to load in something into our ecosystem. Come on, Vue, don't do this. Gotta give the program a minute. Hey. No, I didn't like that. Alright. Give me a sec while I load it up again. It crashed the program, which is very odd. But anyway. It's alright. We'll just load it up again. Like I said to you guys, with any 3D software, occasionally it will crap itself and crash, but half of the course when you're working with 3D. Snowbreaker says he had a 2 gig card, and this one benchmarks 34 times faster. Yeah, obviously because of more RAM. It's good that NVIDIA decided when they made the new range of cards to really up the graphics memory, because even if you play games, you really need a lot of graphics memory now. So yeah, NVIDIA upping the amount of graphics memory on their video cards was a great idea. I'm the same. I went from a 2 gig 770 now to the 8 gig card, and the difference is amazing. Even playing video games, like I said, you can up all your texture resolutions and that type of thing to max. And I was impressed with the speed improvement just in 3D Studio Max as well, going from a 770 to a 1080. Any of the 10 series Pascal cards, they were pretty amazing as far as speed goes. So yeah, it's a good video card, and as you know, it's much quicker than the old one. It was the same for me. I generally like to upgrade my video card about every 2 years. I generally skip a generation, so I went from a 7 series, I skipped the 9 series and went to a 10 series in NVIDIA. That's the way I usually like to work. I don't usually think there's enough of a speed increase to go from one series to the next. I mean, that's not always the case. The new Pascal cards, graphics cards, were a pretty significant speed improvement. So even if you were going from a 9 series card to a 10 series, you got a good bump. But me going from a 7 series to a 9 series, I couldn't see the speed improvement, so I waited till the 10 series was released. Snowbreaker says he'd have to wait 3 months to get a 1080. So yeah, no, that's fine. Look, a 1060 is going to give you, 3/4 the speed of a 1080 anyway. And the memory is, you're only going to gain 2 extra gigabytes of memory going to a 1080, so from 6 gig to 8 gig. So I think a 1060 is fine. 1060 is a great card. And you're lucky, I don't know, where I live, NVIDIA, whatever you pay in the US for your graphics cards, they say the 1080 is $600 in the US, we pay double that here. So I paid $1,200 for my 1080. It's the same for all the NVIDIA cards, and they reckon that's the exchange rate and retail markup here, but it seems excessive to me, but that's the way it is. So don't feel that you have to get a 1080 because a 1060 or a 1050 or a 1070 is just as fast. Not as fast, but almost as fast. And you're going to save a lot of money. Specifically for any of my viewers that are in the country that I'm in, because the markups are extreme here. They say it's because of shipping and the exchange rate and retailer markup and all that sort of thing, which is probably true. It seems a bit silly to me. About double the price of the US prices. What can you do? But 1060, like I said, it gives you 3/4 the speed of a 1080 and nowhere near the price that you're going to have to pay for a 1080. So, And you know, NVIDIA, they like to release new cards all the time, so I'm sure that they got new ones waiting in the wings already. But again, I'll be, even when NVIDIA release the next graphics card in their range, the 11 series say, I'll be skipping that and I'll be waiting until they hit the 12 series before I upgrade again. Well, Sniper Echo says he's from Ireland. It'd be about £1,100. I think that's pounds, or is that euro? I can never remember. It's either pounds or euro. Probably maybe euro. Yeah, I think it's euro. Yeah, that's probably about equivalent to what we pay here in Australia. So, yeah, I know in England as well. Even when in pounds, it's a lot of. It's nearly double as what you pay in the US. Euros, yeah, I thought it was euros. You never keep up with what's going on with the EU, with Brexit and all the rest of it, and Ireland, and whether they, you know, whether they're going to keep the pound or they're going to go to the euro or what's going on. Yeah, I thought it'd be euros. That's probably about the same as what we pay in this country when you convert that to Australian dollars. But yeah, like I said, I always skip a generation, so I won't be upgrading to the next generation NVIDIA card whenever they release that, the 1100 series. I'll wait till they release the 1200 series before I upgrade again. Sniper Echo says euros plus pounds. Yep. Oh, okay. Must get confusing for you guys. I was thinking you guys in a euro but have the option to pay in pound or in euro. It must get confusing sometimes. At least I only have one currency here to worry about, unless I'm buying from overseas, which I do a lot anyway. And that's an option actually too. I don't know what it's like for you guys in your country. We have an amount that we can import if we buy overseas where we don't have to pay sales tax on it, and that's $1,000. They may be changing that though, I think, here in this country. So if you buy anything from overseas that's under $1,000 in this country at the moment, you don't pay any sales tax on it. So, and generally when you buy overseas from this country, they remove the VAT that you guys pay in Europe, which is 20% or whatever it is over there. So that takes the price down, and that's generally why a lot of people in this country buy from overseas, because we can get it cheaper there than we can buy it in our own country. But like I said, that's probably going to change because the government want to start taxing straight from a purchase of $20 or more. So because the retailers in this country were upset that people were buying from overseas and not buying locally. Fair enough, I guess. So yeah, any of you guys from overseas, it might be worth looking into buying outside of your country if it's cheaper. Yeah, it is nice, but the government want to stop it, so not for much longer. They are planning on changing it. And we don't pay 20% VAT that you guys pay. We pay a 10% sales tax in this country. Although I'm sure they're going to try and increase that at some stage as well. Nearly loaded back up again. Now, I don't know what caused Vue to crash like that. That's the first time this program has behaved that way. I don't have anything else running in the background that really should have interfered with it like that. To be on the safe side, what we might do this time is there are a couple of different ways we can tackle this. I don't really want to try doing what I did last time and risk the program crashing again. So I'm going to try a different way to do what I wanted to do. We'll keep our fingers crossed the program doesn't decide to crash. Good time for coffee anyway. Basically what I was trying to do is select the material that we use for the stairs. I was going to add an ecosystem on top of that and paint that ecosystem in specific spots on the steps. Now Vue didn't seem to like that, so what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to select the Garden Terrace model and then I'm going to go into the paint ecosystem dialog. We'll see if we can improve it that way. Thankfully we hadn't done any work prior to it crashing, so we didn't lose anything. And like I said, Vue does have an auto backup feature, so if it crashes, it didn't ask me this time because we didn't make any changes to the model, but if we'd added anything or changed anything, when it crashed, the next time you loaded it up, a dialog box would pop up saying, you had a problem, would you like to try and load the last backup? And it would automatically load the file, or try to load the file that it crashed on. And like I said, it didn't do it this time because we made no changes, and Vue's smart enough to know that we made no changes. So even if it does crash, you do have that safeguard in Vue that it will try and save the file as it crashes, so you won't lose any work. And I've never had one of those files become corrupted where it couldn't reload it, so just something to bear in mind if you do use the program and it does behave that way and crash out on you. You shouldn't lose the work you've been doing if you've done any work prior to the crash. Again, it looks like Vue is frozen, but it hasn't. It just takes it a little while to get itself all loaded up. I noticed too when I watched a couple of my own streams from last week, whenever this window would refresh, it would garble my audio a little bit. So what I've done is I've turned the auto refresh here off, and hopefully that'll stop any. It only garbled the audio for a second or so while it was refreshing, but that annoyed me. So I've turned auto refresh off on the viewport here. We can still manually refresh it by hitting the left mouse key, which I'll do right now. Again, just give Vue a minute to work out what's going on. So basically you can right click, and I set the priority to low. It normally goes to default, and I've turned off auto update. And that just means that it won't update like this until I hit the left mouse button. And again, you won't have to worry about it unless you're streaming using the software. It just seems that Vue likes to use all of your CPU resources, and I have to keep some aside for OBS over here on the side. So unless you're streaming while you're using it, you probably don't change those settings, but if you do stream and you do use it, I advise you to make those couple of changes so that you've got something left over for your OBS or whatever software you're using, streaming software you're using to work with. Okay, now I'm going to select our garden terrace. Again, I'm going to move into my top viewport here. I don't like working this way because working through the material is much more convenient. You have much more control. I'm just reluctant to try it again in case the program crashes. I don't want to waste another 5 minutes loading it up. So up here you've got something which is an ecosystem painter. So if you click that, it'll open up this dialog box here. Now with this, what the ecosystem painter allows you to do, SniperEcho says you can probably fix that if you set the audio source application or OBS on a separate CPU core. Yeah, you're right, but Vue uses all the cores automatically. So even if I set my audio application in OBS to use a specific core, Vue will still try and use that core. Now I could get around that by going into my Process Explorer in Windows and removing a couple of cores from Vue. But I found it's really only when this thing refreshes that it's a problem anyway. Most of the times, as long as this doesn't refresh it, it's okay. But yeah, that's true. But what I'd have to do is I'd have to turn off a couple of cores for Vue because by default it uses all my cores. So I had a couple left over for OBS. Because OBS in itself is pretty light. It's only using 12% of my cores at the moment, so my CPU. Yeah, I know what you mean. Isolating one or more CPU cores for sort. Yeah, but that's what I'd have to do. I'd have to actually remove 2 cores from Vue by using my Process Explorer in Windows, so that there were a couple left over that I could assign to my audio program. But generally, like I said, it's okay most of the times. It's only when this window refreshes. And it could be because I have the windows as large as I can get it for you guys to see as well. Because normally that window is pretty small. when you install Vue by default. It's only a tiny window here. I've expanded it out as much as it can go to show you guys a larger viewport. But anyway, yeah, and it's only for a split second. It doesn't destroy the audio, just garbles it for a split second. My voice audio, that is. So yeah, normally with what I want to do here is I would go into the material and assign the ecosystem on the actual object I want to paint on. But because Vue behaved like that, until after the stream when I can test it again to find out what's going on, I'll try and do it this way, because this is another way you can paint ecosystem. So you open up your ecosystem painter here with that button up there. You load in a plant. Now I want to load in if I can find it, that is. Now again, I'm using AzelFX plants here, which are ones that I've purchased separately. But Vue does come with some plants you can use by default. And there's a specific object I'm looking for. And just that I have so much here, so many objects I've purchased over the years, it's hard for me to remember where everything is. There's actually a specific object that I'm looking for. I'm pretty sure it's on here. I used it last time. It's been a little while though since I've actually loaded it up. It's basically twigs and leaves. And it's a really good one to use. I used it in one of my garden terraces I have on Cornucopia. Sticks 3. It wasn't just sticks though, it was actual leaves as well. And I have a feeling it was in one of their tree series. If I can't find it, we'll move on to something else. Just look for it quickly though. No, what I'll do is after the stream I'll search for it, find out where it's been put, and we'll do that in maybe tomorrow's stream. But let's move on to something else I think now. Alright, that's okay, we can do something else. I'll come back to this painter tomorrow, when I can find that object that I want to load up. But basically you load in your ecosystem and then you can paint in that ecosystem by hand. Let's close that down though. Again, like I said, I'll look into it again tomorrow. I'll talk you through that that painting dialog box tomorrow. For the meantime, let's load up a plant. No, don't do this. Oh, it loaded it. I hit the wrong button. I hit my left button. I should have hit the right. It added a plant here, which I don't want. So I'm just going to delete that. Let's see. So left click to add the last plant you loaded. Right click to open up the dialog box. It's actually not a plant. I want it's an object. So, and you do left click to load the dialog box up on the objects, just to be different. So right click on that on plants or atmospheres to load the dialog. If it's an object, you left click to load the dialog. I don't know why they did that, but they did. Now we can either work on the 2 trees I want to add in the front, or we can work on adding some flowers to the side. I think we'll work on the flowers because they're going to be behind the trees. And remember I said to you guys, always work from the back to the front. So I'll follow my own advice and we'll be doing it that way. Now I've created these little flower bundles. I don't know if you can see them in the preview window there. Basically all it is a tiny terrain that I've added some white flowers, some pink flowers and some purple flowers to. I'll load one of them up and show you what I mean. Let's load up this one. And this is a really good way to add detail to your terrains, but have much more control over it than just throwing it all in an ecosystem like we did when we created the grass. Let me just move this forward a bit. I'm just going to move it over into the camera viewport here so you can see exactly what it is. I'm also going to create a new layer for it, so I'm going to call this we're going to call these wildflowers back. So wildflowers back for the background. And I'm just going to drag those into that layer. What are you doing? View is really playing up today. Come on. Okay. You know, it is playing up. I'm going to remove that and reload it. Once it lets me. There we go. I'm going to delete that. Delete that. I'm going to select my layer that I actually want them on. Rename it again. Wildflowers back. So we have our layer selected. Now I'm going to load in that plant again. Because we had our layer selected, it automatically placed it in that layer for us. So let's move it forward again. Gonna pull it up so I can show you exactly what it is. Oh no. I moved my camera, I didn't want to. We'll just wait for Vue to sort itself out from its undo command here. There we go. So basically what that is it's a terrain, a very small terrain as you can see here in the top and side viewports. Just a tiny terrain, just by loading up our terrain here like we did with the grass. Shrink it down so it's quite small. We do want to have it so it has a bit of height to it because we're going to be placing it within this terrain here. And all that has on it, I'll double click the material here, are some ecosystem. It has some grass, some dense flowers, white flowers, pink flowers, and a couple of purple flowers. Okay, all I did was add them in with the button here, load plant, and populate. I believe though with the flowers 2 and flowers 3, I did actually paint those in. So all you do that when you want to do that is to select the object and open up the paint dialog box. And that's exactly the same as the one that's used up here, but it's restricted just to that, that terrain. You won't be able to paint out here. Make sure if you do just want to paint that one flower species, you change it from a bit of everything to only selected. Otherwise it'll just randomize it. I don't want to do that because I've already painted them in. I just wanted to show you guys how I created that tiny little little terrain here with the flowers on it, and what it is and what it's for. And all I did then was put it in a group called Wildflowers Bunch. I know it's hard for you to make out exactly what it is in the viewports here. You'll see it better once it renders in a preview. Let's select that bunch. Let's move it toward the back here. I'm going to go into my side view here. I'm going to sink it down into the terrain underneath of it. You're sort of going to have to judge it by eye because you won't be able to see where one intersects the other. That's just the way view works. If you deselect it, you should have a better idea though. You can see it here in this viewport. A little indication of where it is and what it looks like. And now I know that this is way too big. I can see the flowers here and I'm looking at the flowers in the background and I know that they're way too big. So